What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fire Sports Takes podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be ranking the top 10 running backs in the NFL, and I'm going to give you guys some of my favorite picks of the NBA draft as the NBA draft has concluded. And I'll tell you what, looking at ESPN, it's driving me up a wall with the ignorance that goes into putting together the picks of the NBA draft. You know what? I'll share my screen with you guys. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, you're not going to be able to see this. But this is the dumbest layout I have ever seen in my entire life. You go to why does it still say that the Miami Heat took Nate Amon? And I understand it says traded to Milwaukee right here, but just have this as the Bucks fucking logo. Please. I'm trying to look at an entire team's draft class, and I do that by going over here to teams, right? Let's go to teams. Let's go to the Miami Heat, shall we? Or who's a team that's relatively close here? Boston, Charlotte. I don't know who traded what. Let's see. I know Milwaukee had a trade. Let's go. It's just Braden Burries. Where is Nate Amon? What the fuck is that? That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. If I want to look at an entire team's draft class, it should have the players that the team has the rights to. Braden Burries, Nate Amon. Where the fuck is he, bro? It's just so confusing and so inconvenient. It's just hard to follow. It takes 2 seconds. ESPN has a gazillion dollars. They can just put the Miami Bucks logo next to the player that the Miami Bucks have the rights to. Crazy concept, I know, but it's just really frustrating trying to I want to look at a whole team's draft class, and it's just really annoying having to jump through hoops when it should just be the team's logo next to the player. And I ranted yesterday about how foolish and awful the ESPN production is of the NBA draft in comparison to the NFL draft. It's like they don't care. They don't care. They're just slapdicking this shit together, and it's embarrassing. That's why the NBA is a joke. But I will say, this was the first time I've really I know a good amount of these round two guys because it's ironic. I watched a good amount of college basketball when I was in high school, and then when I was in college, I wasn't watching college basketball because I was going out and about on Saturday. And now it was my first Saturday not in a college town, or first college basketball season where I wasn't in a college town, and I was way more locked into college basketball on a week-to-week basis. And all of a sudden, I'm recognizing, Ryan Conwell in the second round. I'm recognizing Isaiah Nelson in the second round to the Orlando Magic. I'm recognizing that's about as far. Jaron Pierre out of SMU, that guy, I think he was number 7, had dreads, kind of looked like a little bit taller version of Javon Small. Ultimate bucket getter for SMU. Him and I think Booby Miller or whatever his name was, the guard. So it's it is cool knowing that, okay, I was paying attention to college basketball. So I do feel like I'm a little bit credible to talk about some of these late round picks that happened on day 2 of the NBA draft. It's just when it comes to the foreign guys, there was a Russian that I think the Mavericks took in the late rounds. And I'm Vesavold Inchenko. I'm not about to sit here and talk to you about his game, but what I can do is tell you what teams I think got terrific value in day 2. And whoever took Isaiah Evans was going to get terrific value. And you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves now, they might have a really, really solid defensive team. Anthony Edwards is a plus defender. They already had a really good defensive team with Jaden McDaniels is locked down. Rudy Gobert is locked down. Anthony Edwards is locked down. Dante DiVincenzo is scrappy for a guy his size, not a great defender, obviously. But Isaiah Evans, who was a terrific shooter, he was 40% from 3, I believe. Don't quote me on that. It was either 40 or 36%. Let me get in front of me real quick. But he was elite defensively. 6'6" guard, rangy athlete. And he was on a Duke defense that was the number 1 KenPom defense in the country a year ago. He was an absolute baller for them. Let's see, what was he? He was 41% from 3 in 2024, and he played about 14 minutes a game. Higher volume in 2025. He was 36% from 3 on 7.5 3-pointers attempted per game. Really good splits. And I'm pretty sure he had a monster game. Let me look at his game log. I'm pretty sure it was either in the ACC tournament or it was he had 25 against St. John's. He had 25 against St. John's in the Sweet 16. And I think he had another monster game in the ACC tournament. Yeah, he had 32 against FSU in the ACC tournament. This guy is a baller. And you look at this Minnesota Timberwolves team now that just locked up Ayo Dosunmu, Illinois legend. The Bulls are trading him for second-round picks is what the Bulls got for him, by the way. He went off, and I think it was game 4 against the Nuggets. I think Anthony Edwards got hurt, and Dosunmu had 45 in the playoffs. He's a baller. Jaden McDaniels is a baller. And if Jaden McDaniels continues to develop offensively, he's going to be a real stud. Anthony Edwards is a dog. And now you look at the draft that they had. They offload the Julius Randle contract. And I'm looking at their roster. Jaylen Brown is going to be a perfect fit. Perfect fit. They could use a more traditional like point guard to facilitate, but I think they'll be fine. Anthony Edwards, Ayo Dosunmu, I guess, will be that point guard, but he's more of a 2 and a con. All right, either way. I mean, he was a point guard at Illinois. Either way, Dosunmu, Edwards, McDaniels, Jaylen Brown, Rudy Gobert. That is really, really nasty with Terrence Shannon continuing to develop. I really like the Isaiah Evans pick. So if he can step in and be a contributor, maybe not right away, but we're talking 2-3 years down the road, I think that's really, really good value, man. And I love what I love that. I love that for the Timberwolves. They offloaded this Anthony Edwards. They offloaded the Julius Randle contract. They have more roster flexibility to make a big move and to get a second star in there with Anthony. I'd love to see Jaylen Brown there. Really, I would love to see Jaylen Brown there. Like I for some reason I have a soft spot for Jaylen Brown because he was linked to the Nets a few years ago, and I always wanted that to happen. I think he's criminally underrated. He's as good, if not better, than Jason Tatum, but he doesn't get the same notoriety, the same love that Jason Tatum gets in Boston for whatever reason. I don't know. I guess Jaylen Brown should have dunked on LeBron when he was a rookie, and he would get talked about the same way Jason Tatum gets talked about, the same way Jason Tatum gets glazed. And my whole take on Jaylen Brown, the entirety of the time where he's been the running mate with Jason Tatum, is he doesn't take as much shots. His usage rate isn't as high. If his usage rate was as high, he would have similar numbers. He would be more efficient. And this season was proof of that. His usage rate was through the roof, and he had one of the highest usage rates in the NBA. The Celtics won 56 games. They were number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. And on top of that, he was more efficient, and the numbers were very similar to Jason Tatum numbers, where he was finishing like top 5 in MVP voting or whatever it was. So I think Jaylen Brown to Minnesota. I saw somebody say that on Instagram. That's not my take, but I'm not trying to pawn it off as my take, but I do agree with whoever said that. I wish I could give him credit. And it seems like he would be a perfect fit for them right now. Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, Ayo Dosunmu, Rudy Gobert, Jaylen Brown. That's a pretty good 5. That is a really, really good 5, man. So I'm excited. I really like that pick in the second round for Minnesota. Malik Thomas is a guy that I liked a lot. He went to Cleveland. They need wings though in Cleveland. So like that move, I'm not totally I'm sold on. Trayvon Brazil from Arkansas is a really interesting case. He's a stretch 3, but the 3 ball was a stretch 5, but the 3 ball was a little bit inconsistent. Really good defensive player. If they can get a guy like that next to I don't know how that's going to work, but he's an interesting player. Otega Owe was one of the best scorers in the country, one of the best 2 guards in the country last year for Kentucky. Hit that overtime did it force OT? I think it forced overtime in like the last seconds against Santa Clara in the round of 64 in March Madness. That's a really pick. And I said it yesterday. I'm not just saying this because the Nets picked him, but Tyler Bilodeau was one of the most underrated stretch 4s in the country last year. I'm pretty sure he averaged like 18 points per game, 6'9". I think he was like almost 40% from beyond the arc. UCLA's leading scorer, and UCLA was a really, really solid squad. Let me get this guy's shooting splits in front of me. But he was huge for the Bruins down the stretch, and then he did get hurt and he didn't play in March Madness and in the Big Ten. I think got hurt against Purdue in the Big Ten championship game or the Big Ten semifinals, but he was 17 points per game on 46% from 3, shooting 4.5 of them a night. I did not know he was 46%. Dude, he is a baller. He is a little bit older, 22 years old, but again, there's the stretch 4s are at a premium in the NBA, 6'8", and he can shoot 46% from 3. That's going to be huge. Not the greatest defensively, but a really high level score on all 3 levels. I think Bilodeau was a really, really good pick. Felix Okpara to the Magic to Orlando. Oh no, traded to Washington. Okay, yeah, the Wizards have had a really good draft. Felix Okpara is one of the most fun players to watch that doesn't score the basketball because of his hustle, and he's like kind of reminds me a little bit like Dennis Rodman. Not that I watched Dennis Rodman, but 6'11", so I guess he's a little bit bigger. Freak athlete, just crashes the glass at a high level. Really, really good, versatile, elite defender. It's just the Magic needs some shooting. You're not going to get that from Felix Okpara, but I think he is a freak. And if he can develop a jumper, he can be a really, really elite 3-and-D player on the interior, on the glass. He didn't look like 6'11" watching him at Tennessee, but I guess that's what he measured at. What else we like? Isaiah Nelson traded to Orlando. I love the Isaiah Nelson pick for Orlando. I think he is a dog slasher, great versatile wing defender as well. If he can develop as if he can develop a jump shot as well, his ceiling is really, really high. So I like that pick a lot. I'm kind of noticing a trend with the picks that I'm liking. It's guys that impact the game in ways beyond a jumper, and then if they develop a jumper, they'll be really, really good. And I think that's the kind of that seems like a good strat. Not that I'm a guy to consult with draft strategy when it comes to the NBA. NFL is a different story. I could be the Jets GM and we'd win multiple Super Bowls, but that's neither here nor there. Draft guys with high upside, draft guys that hustle, draft guys that work hard, that win in the margins, and if they develop a jump shot, then they'll be really, really elite role players. And I think they did that. I think the Magic and the Wizards both did that with Felix Okpara and Isaiah Nelson, and these are both two guys that I talked about before. And Braden Smith to the Indiana Pacers, I kind of like that move a lot. He can come in and run the second unit. I said that yesterday. Ryan Conwell to Miami, that guy can come in. I mean, Miami has no depth. They get some shooting. They get some shot creating depth with Ryan Conwell, who's going to be a good two guard for them. I think he averaged like 18, I want to say. Let me pull up his game log as well. I think he was averaging like 18 for Louisville last year. Yep. He averaged 18 on 34% from three, but he shot almost 10 threes a game. He averaged 40% from three at Xavier 2 years ago on 7 threes a game. So he's a really good shooter, really good shot creator. Ryan Conwell's a good depth piece for the Heat now because they desperately need some shot making and some depth. And yeah, let's see what else. I don't like what the Grizzlies did. Like my biggest loser of this draft has to be the Memphis Grizzlies. I think Caleb Wilson is going to be a way better pro than Cam Boozer. I think Cam Boozer is a little bit slow, a little bit unathletic. I think he is a really, really good passer at his position. He's really good touch around the rim, and he can be a good mid-range low post, and he has a three ball. So like I see the appeal for Cam Boozer. Is just I don't know how you watch Caleb Wilson and you choose Cam Boozer. I mean, they played in the same game against one another, and Cam Boozer had a pretty good game. I'm pretty sure he had 20 in Chapel Hill. Caleb Wilson was working him all game in the low post. He's elite in transition. He's going to be a plus defender day one. The first game he plays in the NBA, I think Caleb Wilson's going to be a plus defender because of his athleticism, because of his length. And then the second round, you have the Grizzlies going with Richie Saunders over Isaiah Evans. Richie Saunders over Malik Thomas, and I don't agree with either of those at all, especially over Isaiah Evans, who not only is going to be a really plus 3-point shooter and really good 3-and-D player, he's 6'6" and was one of the best defensive guys on the perimeter in the country last year. Duke was the number one KenPom rated defense going into March Madness for a reason. Isaiah Evans had a little bit to do with that. He had 25 against St. John's. He had 35 in the ACC tournament. He can be a really plus level scorer. Him falling to 33 makes no sense. Even guys like Tyler Bilodeau, I would have liked over Richie Saunders. And Richie Saunders is a good player coming off of injury, really good scorer, really good 3-point shooter. But like a Ryan Conwell, I think I would have liked better. And Otega Owe, I would have liked better. It's just I think they reached on Richie Saunders, and I would have taken Wilson over Boozer. So I don't like what the Grizzlies did in this draft whatsoever. Bruce Thornton, Houston is on crack taking Bruce Thornton that early. No disrespect. Talk about an undersized guard, and he is a dog. Really good finishing around the basket, kind of like a chode, stocky. What is that? Yeah, 6'2", 223. At least that's what it said. That's what it says on ESPN. Taking a 6-foot guard that early is crazy. Tyler Tanner, did he go undrafted, or is he going? I think he went back to school. Yeah. Trey Kaufman-Renn is an interesting pick for San Antonio at the end of the round. Yeah, I mean, overall, I'd say the biggest winner of the draft, and I talked about it yesterday, it's got to be the Charlotte Hornets with not just Christian Anderson, who's going to be a 40% 3-point shooter at the next level, really good playmaker as well, but they get the number one rebounder in the NCAA last year in Division One in Hans Steinbach, and they needed a big man. He's going to be great in the pick and roll. He's really good finishing around the basket. And if he can develop a little bit of jump shot, and the Hornets love to shoot threes, they made the most threes in the NBA last year. They picked two guys that fit their system and were needs for them. Maybe not Christian Anderson, but definitely Hans Steinbach. So I love what the Hornets did. I think the Wizards obviously won the draft. That's easy to say when you have the number one overall pick. You get a guy like AJ Debinsa, but I also love the Felix Okpara pick in the second round. Really gritty defender, really good versatile defender, great rebounder. Who else? I love what the Nets did, honestly. I do really love the Nets draft. I would have preferred Darius Acup to Michael Brown Jr., but Michael Brown Jr. is still a dog, has the most range with his tray ball out of anybody in this year's draft. Did deal with a back injury at Louisville, which hindered his numbers a little bit, hindered like his full scouting report, see what he could do in March in the ACC tournament in March Madness. We didn't get to see him, but his handle's nasty. His explosiveness is nasty. He's not undersized like Darius Acuff. And then I think Joshua Jefferson at the end of the first round, one of the best pure low post scorers, one of the best big man scores in the country last year. Really, really good defender as well. And then Tyler Bilodeau was 18 points per game for UCLA on 46% from three at 6'10". And it's a really good pick for the Nets. I do love what the Nets are doing. The Nets are a really long stretch team, a long team that can shoot the piss out of the three, and they want to shoot a lot of them. It's clear what they're trying to do in Brooklyn with the picks like Danny Wolf, with the picks like Yegor Domin, with the picks like bringing in Michael Porter Jr. Michael never seen a shot he don't like Porter Jr. Bringing in Malik Thomas, who is one of the best, or not Malik Thomas. Michael Brown Jr. is one of the best three-point shooters in this draft. Like, it's clear the Nets prioritizing the treble. They're prioritizing spacing. They're prioritizing guys that are good playmakers. And I like what the Nets have done. I'm actually very happy with the draft the Nets have put together here. Let's talk about, though, now the top 10 running backs in the NFL. So we did all of the defensive players. We did interior defensive linemen. We did corners. We did safeties. We did off-ball linebackers. We did edge rushers. So go check those out if you haven't already. But here are the top 10 running backs in the NFL. Before we get into it, let's talk about some honorable mentions, though. I think Chase Brown is a guy that does not get talked about enough. 17th in scrimmage yards 2 years ago, 11th last year. He's top 10 in total scrimmage yards over the last 2 seasons, and he barely had a healthy Joe Burrow. Nasty catching passes out of the backfield. Really good explosive. He ran a 4.3. He has home run hitting ability. I love me some Chase Brown. And Kyren Williams stays underrated. I think people pawn off Kyren Williams to like, oh, he's a product of the scheme. He's a product of the McVay offense, which it definitely benefits him being an offense like that. But he also top 6 in missed tackles forced last season, top 10 in yards after contact, 8th in scrimmage yards since he's entered the league. Kyren Williams has been unbelievably productive. So those are 2 guys that I think are honorable mentions. And Josh Jacobs also isn't on the list. He's an honorable mention for sure. He's probably 11. He's probably the first name off the list. And then Chase Brown, Kyren Williams right there, not including some of the young guys that I think are next up, like your Omarion Hamptons, your Travion Hendersons, your Jeremiah Loves. I like I like Jonah Coleman in Denver out of TCU. I like Emmett Johnson. He ended up in KC behind Kenneth Walker out of Nebraska. Those are some guys to keep an eye on, especially Omarion and Travion. I think it's too early to rank them here yet when you have so many established guys. Same thing with Ashton Jeanty. He's not on this list, but he was also among the league leaders in missed tackles forced as well. So I think all of these guys are coming up, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're on this list next year if they have really good breakout seasons, but it's just they haven't done enough yet to warrant them being on this list. Number 10, Kenneth Walker. Water bottle's empty. Let me get a water break here before I go on this Kenneth Walker rant. All right, I think Kenneth Walker on this Kansas City Chiefs offense is going to be lethal. Lethal. He had one of the highest missed tackle rates in the history of the NFL. He had the highest missed tackle rate out of a running back that charted more than 150 carries in a season since 2015. He averaged 100 rushing yards per game in the playoffs. Super Bowl MVP. K9 is that guy on a full workload, no longer in Zach Charbonnet jail. Look out in this Andy Reid offense. Red zone production gonna be up. I think his his work as a pass catcher is gonna be up. I love Kenneth Walker. He's number 10. He's just the eye test too. Really pure, really great ball carrier vision, really good explosiveness, can run through your face and can juke you out of your shoes. He is a dog, top 3 in 20-plus yard carries. He is a beast. Kenneth Walker at 10. Breece Hall at number 9. And I know what you guys are thinking. Oh, of course, the Jets fan has Breece Hall above Kenneth Walker. But hear me out for a second here, chat. I value guys that can catch passes out of the backfield. And Breece Hall is definitely not as good of a runner, not as good in open space in terms of making guys miss as Kenneth Walker is, but he is a way better pass catcher than Kenneth Walker is. He needs to be in a good offense, man. Put Breece in a good offense, and I think he can have elite production. I'm talking 1,700, 1,800 scrimmage yards. He is 4th in the NFL in receiving yards since entering the league amongst running backs, and 6th in receptions. Had more scrimmage yards last season than Saquon Barkley and Kenneth Walker. Both of those guys are obviously on this list. And Breece was literally the whole entire Jets offense, led by Brady fucking Cook, because Garrett only played like 7 games last year. Top 10 in scrimmage yards at the RB position over the last 3 seasons, despite being in possibly the worst situation for a running back to produce. Bad offensive line play. The offensive line was average last year, and it should be good this year because it's young and ascending, but it has not been a good offensive line. The quarterbacks that have quarterbacked the Jets offense that Breece Hall plays in have been a carousel of guys. Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson, Mike White, Joe Flacco, the list goes on. Tim Boyle, the list goes on. Tyrod Taylor, Brady Cook, Chris Streveler. It's just been a joke. It's been a revolving door at quarterback, and the offense has had no stability. He's on his fourth play caller now in 4 years. That's fourth or third? I think third. Third play caller now. No, because it was LaFleur, and then it was LaFleur, and then I'm forgetting the guy's name. He sucked. He was and it was LaFleur, Hackett. Who was it last year? The guy that came over from Detroit that's not there anymore, whose name I'm forgetting, that I was really high on, but his name I'm forgetting, and now Frank Reich. So he's on his fourth play caller in 4 seasons, no continuity in the offense, and he's still been able to produce at a really, really high level. Fourth in receiving yards amongst the RB position since entering the league. Top 10 in scrimmage yards since 2023. He is a baller. In a good offense, he can put up elite numbers. And you can interchange K9 and Breece. I just think the gap between K9 and Breece as a runner is not as big as the gap between Breece and K9 in terms of catching passes and his productivity as a pass catcher in Breece Hall. Number 8 is James Cook, the rushing leader last year, 3-time Pro Bowler, 4th in yards after contact, top 10 in broken tackles, runs of 20-plus yards, top 3 in 30-plus yard runs, and 2nd in the NFL in runs of 10-plus yards or more. Absolute home run hitter, elusive as hell, fantastic vision. He had a run against the Jets week 2 last year that just snatched my soul out of my body. It was disgusting. Top 5 in rushing touchdowns among running backs, 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons, back-to-back double touchdown seasons. That does help that he's next to Josh Allen, but in James Cook's 3 years in the NFL, or 4 years in the NFL, he's averaging 5.1 yards per carry across his career. He's incredibly hard to tackle, underrated in open space, really good vision, hard to bring down. Not the greatest as a pass catcher, although early on in his career, he was utilized more as a pass catcher. Really, they've just been get the ball and get the fuck out of the way. He is a dog. He has arrived. He is a premier back in the NFL. You can put him higher than this, but I just think the veteran, proven guys that have been doing it for longer. Besides, there's one guy on here that I think I might have egregiously high, but I don't care. Until he keeps doing it, he needs to do another season like this. He needs to improve as a pass catcher, and we can really see him in some top 5 conversations. Saquon Barkley, I have at number 7. You could throw these guys in any order, and I wouldn't be that mad at you. It's a really subjective position. Barkley could be as high as number 3. And again, I would not be mad at you, but his efficiency last year just plummeted, man. It was awful. He was 16th in yards after contact amongst running backs that had 200-plus yard carries. He only had 4 carries of 20-plus yards or more, and he averaged 2 whole less yards per carry than he did in 2024. He genuinely was not a top 10 running back in the NFL last year, but in 2024, he had the most rushing yards in a season in NFL history, including the playoffs. He had the most runs where he eclipsed 20 miles per hour in NFL history since they started tracking 20 miles per hour. But he also didn't have much receiving upside recently. He was 15th in scrimmage yards. Breece Hall, Chase Brown, Kyren Williams all had more. But again, the productivity in 2024 was just too much to just completely neglect Saquon this year. I still believe in him. The offensive line got worse. Landon Dickerson was banged up all year. Cam Jurgens robbed the Philadelphia Eagles blind. No Jason Kelce, or they didn't have Jason Kelce the year he went off. But either way, Lane Johnson was banged up. It's just their offensive line was not as good as it has been, and that was evident. Plus, the whole offense in Philadelphia was garbage with Kevin Patullo. So I am punishing Saquon a little bit for the lack of efficiency. When the ball was in his hands, he still had a really high clip in terms of broken tackles. He had the same amount of broken tackles as Jahmyr Gibbs. So it's not like he lost his elusiveness, but he wasn't hitting as many home runs as he was. But the Eagles' offense in general was just really predictable. And not to say they weren't getting much push in the run game the way they were a couple of years ago. So I still think Saquon is great. I think Saquon could be the number 1 RB in the NFL next year. But it's just the lack of production, the lack of explosiveness. I'm going to punish him a little bit for it. And there was just other guys that were way more explosive. And honestly, there's a guy on here I can't wait to talk about. But let's just move on. CMC is a guy as well that I think is getting a little bit overrated. I think he's a little bit washed allegations. I might start throwing him around for Christian McCaffrey. Oh, but he was second in the NFL in scrimmage yards. Oh, he led the Niners in receiving. I understand all that, but you got to understand CMC's production was more because of the volume he was getting in this Shanahan offense because everybody was on IR more than it was CMC being incredibly, incredibly efficient. He's simply not as explosive as he used to be. Only 5 carries of 20 plus yards or more last season, and he was still able to finish with 2,000 scrimmage yards because of his nuance as a route runner out of the backfield, because of the savant Kyle Shanahan is in getting Christian McCaffrey in one-on-one scenarios out of the backfield with running backs, with slower safety or with slot corners, with safeties, and CMC's ability to win those matchups. But again, he led the NFL in total opportunities. That's targets plus carries with 440. And you mean to tell me if you put a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane, Jonathan Taylor, or Saquon in a Kyle Shanahan system and gave him 440 total opportunities, they wouldn't outproduce Christian McCaffrey? I think they would. I think they would set records. I think guys like Breece Hall, Chase Brown, Kyren Williams, Kenneth Walker in this situation in the Kyle Shanahan gap zone run scheme offense that we've seen Matt Breida run for 1,000 yards, Raheem Mostert run for 1,000 yards, not to mention a guy like Breece Hall or Chase Brown who are really good pass catchers as well. I think they could produce. I think they might have been able to produce more than CMC did last year if they got the opportunities because they're more efficient with the ball in their hands than McCaffrey was. And I'm not trying to rip on McCaffrey. He's still elite. Like his use as a receiver is going to elongate his shelf life in this league for a really, really long time because even when he does, the wheels do start to fall off. He's just so technically sound in his ability to get open, running routes out of the backfield. It's next level. And that's why he's still this high on the list, but he was not a good running back last year. He was not a good running back. He was a good wide receiver. He was not a good running back. And I'm not saying it's not in there anymore, but only 5 carries of 20 plus yards or more when he was second in the NFL in total carries. The explosiveness is just not what it used to be from CMC, but the production is still elite because of the Kyle Shanahan system, because of his ability as a pass catcher. And again, his production was more predicated on volume, not efficiency. And I have Jonathan Taylor in the top 5, CMC not in the top 5 because of how efficient Jonathan Taylor was. But the last 7 games of the year, Jonathan Taylor kind of tailed off a little bit. Only 3 touchdowns and didn't break 100 yards a single time, averaged less than 4 yards a carry. But despite all that, he still led all running backs in yards after contact. Despite the last 7 games of the season, he didn't break 100 yards a single time. He still led all running backs in yards after contact. That is just ridiculous. He was insane. 5.2 yards per carry on the season. I have Derrick Henry at 4 simply because Derrick Henry's resume and his recent success is better. And he was dominant this year. Second leading rusher, 5th season with 1,500 yards, 2,000 scrimmage yards a season ago, and he averaged 5.2 yards per carry this year. Led the NFL in 20-plus yard runs, 30-plus yard runs, tied for second in 40-plus yard runs, second in yards after contact, and was second amongst running backs in rushing touchdowns. That was Derrick Henry last year at the age of 32, ladies and gentlemen. That is ridiculous. That is fucking ridiculous. And I test this just Derrick Henry's just so aesthetically pleasing to watch run the fucking football. That's gonna be a sad day when the wheels finally do fall off of Derrick Henry, probably in 2045 at this point. But I think he's a better running back than Jonathan Taylor. I do. I really do. And he's running behind a way worse offensive line, not to pull that card out, but I will pull that card out. I think you're splitting hairs between Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor. I think Derrick Henry was a little bit more explosive, although Jonathan Taylor did average more yards after contact, or he had more yards after contact. It wasn't more yards after contact per carry because Jonathan Taylor led the NFL in carries, but yet Derrick Henry still had more rushing yards than Jonathan Taylor did. So you're really splitting hairs between the two. I lead the guy that had 2,000 scrimmage yards the season prior and followed up with 1,500 yards rushing, and it was second in rushing back-to-back seasons. I lean Derrick Henry. He is unbelievable. Number 3, this could cause some stir-up here. This could cause some stir-up, but I need you guys to hear me out. Devon Achane is a top 3 running back in the NFL, and I'm tired of pretending that he's not just because he plays for the Miami Dolphins. That guy averaged 5.7 yards after contact. 5.7. He led all running backs in yards after contact. Oh, wait, no, I messed it up. I messed it up. Sorry, forgive me. He led all running backs in yards per carry that had at least 100 carries with 5.7 yards per carry. That's Devon Achane for you. Devon Achane is a top 3 running back in the NFL. He just plays in Miami. He isn't a household name like Christian McCaffrey or Derrick Henry or Jonathan Taylor, but he is a top 3 running back in the NFL. 5.7 yards per carry. That led all running backs that had at least 100 carries. He was first in 10 plus yard carries, second in carries of 20 yards or more, second in carries of 30 yards or more, third in yards after contact, sixth in broken tackles, fourth among RBs in receiving yards as well. One of the most explosive weapons in the NFL. One cut and he is gone. Elite vision, elite pass catching ability. Good luck tackling this guy in open space. He is nasty. Devon Achane, if you put him on a competent offense, if you swap Devon Achane and Christian McCaffrey and you gave Devon Achane 440 total opportunities, which was what Christian McCaffrey had when you add his targets and his carries together, Devon Achane might have 2,500, close to 3,000 yards from scrimmage. In a Kyle Shanahan offense, with that type of burst, with that type of athleticism, with that type of pass catching ability, Devon Achane is a top 3 running back in the NFL. He is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Top 5 in rushing yards, top 6 in scrimmage yards on the Miami fucking Dolphins. Achane's a dog. That's one of the hottest takes I've had in a while, but I will stand on that. Jahmyr Gibbs at number 2, Bijan at number 1, pretty self-explanatory. Gibbs has just been more available than CMC. At the time I was doing this, I get my notes, I have more available than CMC. I was gonna have CMC at 3, but the more I looked into the numbers, it was like, oh, I was prisoner of the box score, just watching CMC have. I was prisoner of the fantasy football land because CMC. If we're talking fantasy, CMC is probably RB2, RB3 going into next season, right? Because of the volume. But he's not a better player, not a better running back at this point in his career than Jahmyr Gibbs. But in my mind, I was going to have CMC3, Gibbs 2. So while I was crafting my Gibbs notes, I was crafting my argument as to why Gibbs is better than CMC. But either way, 5 yards a carry, nasty. McCaffrey, here's a crazy stat for you guys for your Gibbs versus McCaffrey, if that's a debate that somebody's having somewhere. McCaffrey had 5 runs of more than 20 plus yards. Gibbs had Gibbs had more carries of 30 plus yards than McCaffrey did of 20 plus yards. Not insane. Gibbs is also third amongst running backs in receiving, simply more explosive, more elusive, less tread on the tires. Going to be interesting to see how he does this year without David Montgomery coming in and the workload. I'm sure he'll be fine. It will be interesting to see. Bijan, best running back in the world, forced 11 missed tackles in one fucking game. Hardest tackle in the NFL. Elite burst, weapon out of the backfield, 79 catches for 820 yards, led the NFL in scrimmage yards, highest missed tackle rate, highest missed tackle force. Eye test, analytics, box score, everything you need. Bijan Robinson's the best running back in the NFL. Hit that subscribe button. I love you guys. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fire Sports Takes podcast, man. If you guys are listening every day, man, I love you guys. The grind is here. We are absolutely locked in. And I'll talk to you guys in the next episode of the Fire Sports Takes podcast.